Welcome into the latest edition of our Cubs REKAP Podcast, a presentation of our REKAP YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. On assignment in Arizona, that's Gordon Wittenmyer. I'm David Kaplan here in our suburban studios. Gordon, the Cubs are back to work. There is action all over the Cactus League. The White Sox are back to work, and Jed Hoyer spoke today. So I'm going to ask you right from the jump. I don't think they're done. Do they have the flexibility to go add, Zach Gallen?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that because they made it clear that, number one, they're not done. They're still talking to a bunch of agents out there and free agents out there. I don't know if a trade would be coming, but they're definitely still looking at players they could possibly add. They made that clear. What's a little less clear is just how much they're willing to spend and what kind of a primary type of a player they might be going after. But Jed was asked specifically about his flexibility in being able to maybe add another guy without it requiring trading other salary. And specifically, the number that was dropped was, say, $18 million for a guy. Could you do something like that? Do you have the kind of flexibility to do something like that? And actually, we should play this clip from Jed talking about it because his facial expression says as much as what he actually said.
I would just say that I'm not going to comment on any specific free agents, but listen, I think we're in a good place and we're going to have room to be flexible at the deadline and throughout the season. I think that's the most important.
And now as well, who can speak for him?
What's the next step for CA offensive development to reach that consistent shape of the season?
Just heavy swing decisions. I mean, obviously he's gifted power-wise. I think he's pretty gifted from a hand-eye coordination-wise. I think his maturation, and it's not going to happen in one spring training, but his maturation is making better swing decisions. I think that's how he gets to that action. It's exciting because he's already such a dang player. If he can make that one last step or kind of improve that, I think this guy's the limit. But I think that in a simplest flaw, I think that would be number one as a decision.
So that last part, that was obviously about PCA and how he might get even better this year. That's all great. But that first part, you saw those.
He started laughing. Yeah, they obviously do have money to spend. He said, we have money and we'll be flexible. And we have money at the deadline. Yeah.
And clearly they're poking around. There's a lot of talent still out there available. And they're not done at least exploring that. That seems pretty clear.
So if you're a betting man, do you think they add a starter? Do they add, somebody to play multiple positions who's a good bat against lefties? What do you think?
I'd like to see more pitching. I don't think you can ever have enough of that. I know Jed has said that in the past with other teams that he's had here in Chicago that seem like they have a lot of pitching, and he says that. So I know he already thinks that way. I know I think that way. That to me makes the most sense, especially when you look around. A division that's got Hunter Green at the top of a pretty damn good rotation in Cincinnati that was among the top two in the league last year, and they return everybody and add a couple of really good young arms. And then you've got Paul Skeens, maybe the best pitcher in the game, also in the division. And even though they traded Freddie Peralta out of Milwaukee, you've got a lineup to contend with there. And one thing that Jed did say today, too, was that, by the time they got to the playoffs last year, they had some issues with Shota and they had, Justin Steele wasn't there and he'll be back this year, obviously. But they felt a little thin and we saw firsthand what that meant. You lose a decisive Game 5 in a division series. You don't get to the LCS, and largely because of the pitchers you didn't have, and a quality you didn't have of some guys that were maybe a little bit hurt or dinged up or slumping. And so to answer your question, yeah, pitching is absolutely what I'd be looking for.
Here's what's still available. I'm not going to read you every guy, but the key guys that are still available out there: Chris Bassett, Starling Marte, Lucas Giolito, Guff's guy, Miles Michaelis, no interest there. In terms of being able to hit lefties, there's not a ton out there. Max Scherzer's still around. Zach Gallen, who you mentioned, that would be my preference to be able to get him. And then in terms of trying to find a solid bench bat that could give you something, there's not a ton left out there, to be honest with you, Gordon. I think it's much more on the pitching side. I was told that a guy who definitely wants to play and mashes lefties is Tommy Pham, the former White Sox player.
Yeah.
And I would think the White Sox would want him back. I mean, their outfield's not very good. So,
no. And I like him. You know, some people think he's a little offbeat. I like him as as who he represents, but as a person. But and I don't know him that well, just from what I understand, people that know him. But also as a player, I mean, I really like. He's a hard-nosed guy. So yeah, I like that. But again, you're talking about, unless you're talking about Zach Gallen, you're pretty much talking about around the edges of the roster with the guys that you're talking about there. So Zach Gallen, if you want pitching depth for maybe potentially a little bit more of a bargain, maybe go get Guff's guy, just to have a guy that's done it at a high level in the past.
Mike Tauchman's still out there.
I'm sorry, who?
Mike Tauchman is still available.
And he's been here before, been there, done that, knows the place.
So there's not a ton out there in terms of position player. There is a pretty significant number of starting pitchers. Now, as Jed went on, and he's always so good in those settings, we just had him in here, and you know how he's affable, and you can ask him the most controversial question, and he'll just chuckle and figure a way how to answer it, right?
Or not answer it, as we just saw. But
he knows how to talk around it.
Yeah. He's been around this game for a while.
He has. What else did you take away from his press conference?
So there's a couple of things. One thing, and I asked him this, and I think we have a clip of the response to this. Look, they won 90 games last year, and finally kind of broke through and looked like for a while they were a dominant team. They looked like they had all the pieces. They could win in October. They won a series in October, almost won two. They bring back guys. They went out and got Bregman. They added Cabrera to the rotation. They're going to get Steele back in that rotation, and as we just talked about, maybe they'll add more to it. You've got, to your point earlier about if you go get a guy that can help you be a utility guy or whatever, Matt Shaw might be that guy. They even like his athleticism in the outfield. So you've got a pretty damn good roster already. You got a playoff roster already, obviously. You got a division favorite on paper, I think, pretty obviously.
Yep.
And so now it's about redundancy and depth and what you can do in October. So I asked Jed, in the context of all this, coming off of last year and what you've done in the offseason, in the 15 years he's been here, like, when was the last time? How long's it been? How does this compare to the level of expectations you've had coming into a previous spring training? So we can play that, and then you and I can discuss when we think it was.
I don't know how to compare it, but I know the expectations are high, which I think is great. It's what you want. I think the excitement at camp is palpable. I think the players are talking about it. Coaches are talking about it. I think that they're excited about our team. They're excited about our group, both from a talent standpoint, also from a camaraderie standpoint. I think so many of the guys were here last year. I think they feel like we had a really good season, but there's unfinished business. And I think in a lot of ways, that's the best kind of spring training when there's hunger. And so I think that the expectations don't create anxiety. I think they create hunger with this group. And I think this group's excited to get started.
So when I hear him say that, I thought that they should have done more at the deadline last year, and maybe they wouldn't
We agree on that, yeah.
be fueled by that. But the fact that they got as close as they did to the NLCS, and then they went out and added on Bregman, you mentioned Cabrera, a ton of relievers. I feel pretty good that they are in this year to try and win it.
I agree with that. And when was the last time you felt like that, Cap? I certainly haven't felt like that in the last 5 years. And so you go back to that last core.
Probably 2017, 18. In 18, I'm like, I don't know about this offense. It seems broken. Theo would later go on to say our offense is broken. But
and that team won 95 games, which was more than anybody else. I mean, they tied the Brewers for the best record in baseball.
Correct. And then lost the playoff to them, the tiebreaker, and then lost in the wild card to the Rockies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if we want to talk about, like, put the starting line on this, when Jed and Theo came in the fall of 2011, the first time we felt like there were real expectations was probably 2016, because even going into 2015, there weren't expectations. They were coming off of a 5th place finish or whatever the hell it was. And then 17, there was all this talk about dynasties and
repeats.
And then 17, they had the hangover and they got to the LCS and we didn't know. So 18 was kind of like, boy, they still got the group together. And I think that was the year they brought in Darvish. So you thought, okay, yeah, maybe 18. By 19, there were expectations because they were still there and they had 3 out of 4 LCSs and 4 straight playoff berths. Maybe 18 is less. I mean, that's 8 years, Cap.
That's a long time on a market where you have the type of revenues and abilities to add talent. No question about
it. And it shouldn't be that long. It should never be that.
It feels so different, Gordon, because Theo's part owner of the Boston Red Sox. Jed is already on to his 2nd contract as the president of the Cubs. And it just feels like the organization has a different feel to it, more of a pitching organization than it was when they were climbing, trying to win.
And that was the idea when they brought Carter in, right, from Cleveland, where they've done such a good job of developing pitchers, and he was supposed to have, the magic pill for that or whatever, after so many years of struggling to develop pitchers. So maybe we're seeing some of that. I also think like I want to kind of slow it up just a little bit. Like, it does have a different feel this year. And you could even kind of include last year to this year. It does have a different feel. I would say from the time they traded for Tucker last year to now, there's been a different vibe around the player acquisition side of this game. And, whether they're all in or mostly in or partway in or whatever, but where I would caution is just, remember, this is the last year before a CBA expires. And we don't know for sure yet. The next few months will tell us. But how that's impacting some of these teams' behaviors right now. We're seeing a lot of teams. Pittsburgh in the division, I got on a Zoom call with their GM and their manager yesterday. They think they got a shot to get to the playoffs, not necessarily win the division. And they added some real hitters, including just the other day Ozuna. They had O'Hearn and Lowe. So they've got or Lau, I don't know how to pronounce it, but they've added some hitters to a pitching staff that starts with the best guy in the game. That's a recipe to win some more games than they did last year. The Reds, the only thing they were missing was thump. They didn't have a guy hit more than 22 home runs. They just added a guy that hit 49 last year in Eugenio Suarez. So they got a young kid, Sal Stewart, that hits a lot of home runs, and with Suarez in the lineup.
And by the way, since you cover them, the correct way to pronounce his first name, right?
Eugenio.
That's not what he said when you sent me the audio. He said, "Hey, Cop, this is Eugenio Suarez."
He says Eugenio. He likes Gino. His nickname is Gino. But the actual way to pronounce it, I mean, everybody knows, is the way Pat pronounces it.
Then why would he, the player, say?
Yeah, I know. And what's funny is I've never covered him until just since they've acquired him, and being around him and the people around him, you realize, okay, that's him just saying it. By the way, he's the most constantly upbeat, just
my kind of guy, man.
Fun human to be around that I've covered. I've covered some great people in this game. Christopher Morel was fun to be around. I mean, like, just upbeat, lots of great people in this game. But man, this guy's got a different level of vibe to him.
Guff calls me Eugenio here in the office because Guff says I'm the most upbeat person he's ever been around.
Yeah, you guys have a lot in common. We should bring him on the show sometime.
Yes,
at Wrigley or something, just to have the two of you talk.
He's one of my favorite players, man. I've liked that guy for a long time. All right. What else newsy came away? I know there's a new building right behind you.
Yeah. How about this play? Check this out. That used to be that
was like extra fields. They built another training center. So
you see this field in front of us. It might have extended a little farther, but it's similar. But what was behind it was just pitching mounds, just bullpen mounds that open to the weather and everything.
Good to be a Cubby. Wow, look at that.
That's as tall as any structure at the facility, and it looks like cages,
jealous, Brian.
Cages, and it's nothing like Camelback Ranch. I mean, this is that's horses and camels. This is look at this. This is crazy. This is new this year. So that's one thing. So their facilities keep getting better. The rich keep getting richer, right? I mean, I guess that's what it is. Cap, let me bring something else up that we haven't talked about. You asked me what was new. We just talked about Suarez. He's going to play in the WBC for Venezuela. He's the only guy for the Cincinnati Reds that's going to be on their 26-man roster who's going to be missing for a stretch from spring training because he's going to be playing in the WBC. That's the fewest of anybody in baseball. The Nationals have one or two guys. The Nationals are non-factors anyway.
They got one. Cubbies have.
Cubs have like at least 8 guys that are either projected.
White Sox have 5.
And 2 of them are Boyd and Tyone. You got PCA, Suzuki, Bregman. That's 5 big ones right there. I'm blanking on I counted them up, and there were at least 8 guys. I mean, there's more minor leaguers too, but at least 8 guys that factor into the 26-man mix. There's only 2 teams in baseball, Philly and the Mariners, who have as many or more. And I talked about this because it's 2 extremes with the Reds and the Cubs, who may prove to be the best 2 teams in the division. Obviously, the Cubs are on paper the favorites going in, but the Reds could be the team that pushes them the most. We don't know yet. But those are 2 extremes in Major League Baseball right now of big league players that are going to the WBC. One has hardly any. Terry Francona in Cincinnati says that's a big advantage for him because he remembers times in Cleveland when they lost basically all their stars. And he said, they're out there doing drills with minor leaguers. He's saying, why are we even doing this? And so he says it makes a difference in the work you can get done in camp. Jed had a different response to it. And maybe you would expect that given that he's on the other end of that spectrum, but why don't we can play that because we got some sound on that too.
I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think from a fan standpoint, it makes for a fun spring for all of us. I think getting to watch good games. I think the WBC is great that way. I think in camp it gives us a lot of opportunity for minor league free agents to really show stuff. So I think you want to look at it as a disadvantage, you can, but I think you look at it the other way. It gives opportunity, and like I said, I think we're all going to enjoy watching it. So I think the better you get as a team, the more players you have. I guess I take it as a compliment that the different countries want our players.
So, look, would you want your players playing in the WBC?
No. Now the stuff he said at the end, the better your team is, the more guys you'll get. And so maybe it's a sign, so it's positive, sign your team's good and all that. That's great. The rest of it was BS. The rest of it was that stuff we were talking about earlier about how Jed knows how to answer questions. I mean, who cares if your minor leaguers get more opportunities? They've got a minor league camp here. You're trying to win the whole damn thing this year. Who cares if your minor leaguers get more? You don't. What you care is that guys that you want to win in October are ready to hit the ground running out of the chute. Now, I'll tell you this from having talked to guys in the Reds clubhouse. Hunter Green turned it down, an all-star. Nick Lodolo turned it down. Ellie De La Cruz, a two-time all-star, turned it down. Emilio Pagan, a closer who saved 30-something games last year for them, turned it down. These guys all said the same thing. It's because they want to be ready for the Reds. They want to prepare themselves for the Reds season to the best of their ability to do that. And actually, the organization talked to them about that. Francona's feelings on this are well known, and he had some conversations, not strong arming them, but like laying it out, like, hey, Nick Lodolo, you're still an arbitration guy. Go out and make $50 million, become rich, and then later in your career, when you have $50 million in the bank, go play and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, and it's a fair perspective. I just think if I was Alex Bregman, who I've got my money, that's a different case. I'd want to play for my country. Yeah. I'd be like, you know what? I'll be hitting the ground running when the season starts.
And that's what everybody says. All these guys do, especially guys like, again, Nick Lodolo with the Reds turned it down. He's never been on a national team at any level. He said it was really hard to make that decision because I really want to do it. And talking to other players who've done it, they love it. Emilio Pagan's done it twice. He says he recommends it to anybody that gets an opportunity because it's a he didn't say once in a lifetime, but it's a unique opportunity. He says they do a great job. It's high caliber competition early in the baseball year, and it's fun. He said they do a good job of making it fun. But there's these two extremes that exist in this division right now, where one of them has a ton of guys going out there, and they're all, let's be honest. I mean, most of them are veterans, pros. They'll probably be fine. I'd worry a little bit about pitchers. I wouldn't want my pitchers going. And then the other team that's got all these guys that got invited, and they said no, because we're just going to stick to our business about this 6 months of the MLB season and try to win the 7th month. It'll be interesting.
It is. It's an interesting perspective. Well, look, I'm still holding out hope that the Cubs add a high-level pitcher, if it's Zach Gallen. So we'll see. That would be a great get.
You got 2 starting pitchers going to the WBC, and you got another guy that's on the shelf until maybe May, maybe June in Justin Steele. Absolutely go out and get another one. One more reason to go out and get, or 2 more reasons to go out and get another one.
You never, ever know where it's going to. You'll be like, oh, God, am I glad we got that guy?
Yeah, absolutely.
You never know. Gordon, have a great rest of your day, man.
All right, you too, Cap.
The Mission, best Mexican food in the Valley.
Oh, yeah? There's a place called Raul and Julie. No, Raul and I don't remember.
Go to the Mission. It's where the Mission's the greatest. Phenomenal.
The Mission.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And get the tableside guac. Thank me later.
Okay. I love guac. All right.
There you go.
I'll let you know. I'll bring a report.
And congrats to your Seahawks.
Thanks, man. I won a few dollars on that one.
Yeah, so did I. When you lay 9.5, you get way better odds.
And I laid 7.5.
There you go. And I heard that there was a certain member of the Cubs that walked up and handed you a C note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can leave the name anonymous right now.
Correct. It rhymes with Ned. Hey, have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too, man.
Appreciate you. There he is. That's Gordon Wittenmyer. He is on assignment at spring training. We'll have another episode of the podcast next week, unless we get breaking news and then we call an emergency podcast. For Gordon, I'm Cap. Go Cubs, baby. Fly the W. I'm starting to feel a World Series possibility. Take that.